Hey guys! The light is leaving, so that's why we're standing next to a window. So you guys get awkward standing Kira, the light is just doing weird things, but let's just roll with it. Let's just do the January wrap-up thing, should we? Yeah. I'm thinking about, instead of doing wrap-ups this year, doing like monthly mini reviews, because wrap-ups just sound like it's just one of those things that's like, hey, I read this book and I liked it. But like, I want to give you guys a summary and other things, like a proper review without being a proper review, because you know I don't do anything proper. Also, I have a cold, so you guys get to listen to the nasal. You'd think mini monthly reviews would also be scripted, but apparently they're not. This month I did the Bout of Books readathon, and since during the last Bout of Books readathon I read A Wrinkle in Time by Madeleine L'Engle, I thought I would pick up the second one, which is A Wind in the Door by Madeleine L'Engle. I love these books so much. They're like proper science fiction for like middle graders, and I love that because I adore science fiction and I'm trying to get into it more, so middle grade, like really deep science fiction was a really good place to start, I think, and I love this one. The last one was a lot more fantasy, and this one is a lot more science-y. Probably could be told as a standalone. We get introduced to the characters in the first one. That's pretty much all you need to know. There isn't like a lot of plot going on between books. Basically, the plot summary is that Charles Wallace, which we met in the first book, is sick, and his mother, who's a scientist, is trying to figure out how to cure his illness, and then this mysterious dude comes along and is like, come with me, let's go fight the illness, and they go on this crazy adventure that perfectly weaves together science fiction and fantasy. My only complaint with this book, as was my complaint with the first one, A Wrinkle in Time, is that the characters aren't realistic, like, at all. Charles Wallace is like 5, and he is just the smartest little thing on the face of the planet. I understand that there are child prodigies, but this kid is just insane with the amount of knowledge he has and the way he holds himself and speaks. He is like an adult. I keep forgetting that he's like 5 years old. No scientist has ever seen this thing, and Charles Wallace is just like, it's this, I got it, I fixed it. Yep. Basically, I give this book 4 out of 5 stars because it perfectly weaves together science fiction and fantasy, and the characters are just so smart, and it's written in like a quirky manner, and it's just, I love this series, man. And then I read Egghead by Bo Burnham, which is a poetry book by the amazing singing comedian Bo Burnham. So I thought I would really love this book, and I did. He's so witty. He's a genius. He uses the English language so well. But my one complaint with this poetry book, which was a really fast read, it was really good, but my one complaint is that page to page, it was so jarring because he would have these really funny, like, inappropriate, jokey poems, and then you would turn the page and it would be like a really serious, beautiful poem about suicide. Like, you would have like 10 poems in a row that was like, ha ha ha, Bo, you're so funny, you're so witty, and then it's like, oh, I feel empty inside after reading that poem. That was not expected from a comedian. That hurt deep down. He always wants to make a point with his jokes and all that stuff, so I'm pretty sure he did that on purpose, but it made the reading process a little more difficult for me, so I ended up giving Egghead by Bo Burnham 4 out of 5 stars. However, I totally recommend this book, especially if you like Shel Silverstein, because this is exactly like a more adult, dark, inappropriate Shel Silverstein. And as I said, this was for the Bout of Books readathon, and so I had to pick up a Mortal Instruments book because I read them during the readathon, so it forces me to get through it and not just put it down every time I'm like, that was so cheesy, why would you write that, Cassandra Clare? Like, I actually had to read through it all. So I picked up the third book, which is City of Glass by Cassandra Clare. And let me tell you, this book surprised me. I was not bored at all reading this book. There was so much action and adventure, and it kept my mind going, and I wanted to keep reading it. And I only rolled my eyes at like 2 or 3 parts. It was like way better written than the previous 2 books. And I just really liked this book, and it was so surprising. Like, I don't like Cassandra Clare's writing, but this was like the right amount of silly cheese and like action and blood and gore. And we actually find out the things I wanted to find out. The reason I kept reading was because I was trying to figure out how they were going to make Clary and Jace happen without causing an uproar in the streets. And I figured it out halfway through the book, and I'm like, oh, okay, I get it now, I understand. I could stop reading, but I didn't want to. So I ended up giving City of Glass by Cassandra Clare 4 out of 5 stars, which is like crazy, seeing as I gave the last book 2 stars. So, you go, Cece. Okay, you win. You're a good writer. Okay. And then I read The Lady and Her Monsters by Roseanne Montiel, which is a nonfiction book about real-life dissections and like real-life Dr. Frankensteins and Mary Shelley's inspiration from the book Frankenstein. As you guys know, Frankenstein is probably my favorite classic ever. It was really interesting to read about all the things that she could have taken inspiration from that we don't know if she did, but we assume so. Also, I did not know anything about Mary Shelley other than she was an 18-year-old girl who created the science fiction genre and who stole Percy Shelley from his previous wife. That's all I knew. They didn't really paint her in the best light, but I assume that's just because she had depression, and a lot of people didn't understand depression in those days, and so a lot of the letters and journals paint her in a really bad light, and so this book kind of took that, and I'm like, meh, I don't think she was really that bad. I think she just had some serious depression. But I have a really morbid fascination with the grave robbers who used to dig up bodies and sell them to the universities to like dissect. I watched the movie Burke and Hare a few months ago, which stars Simon Pegg, and it was about Burke and Hare who would murder people to then sell to the universities to dissect. And I was flipping through this book and I'm like, Burke and Hare! We find out about the real people, and they were not good people, obviously. And only one got hanged, and that's like crazy to me. And obviously it was nonfiction, so it was a really slow read for me, because I never fly through nonfiction, and it took forever to read, but it was really entertaining, and I liked reading about all the gross, gory things. So I ended up giving this book 4 out of 5 stars. And then I read The Cuckoo's Calling by Robert Galbraith, aka J.K. Rowling. I am not impressed with J.K. Rowling lately. I'm not impressed with her need to mess up canon. I'm not impressed with her being like, oh yeah, I had queer representation in Harry Potter, da-da-da-da-da. No, you didn't. I wasn't impressed with this book. But let me put a disclaimer, this is the book that made me realize that I am not into murder mysteries. I'm not into crime novels. I just don't like them. And I didn't know that before I read this book, but it's pretty obvious. Now, I think this is probably a typical crime novel. Like, it was good. It felt really slow to me. The pacing was just ugh. And here's the thing. I don't think who killed the chick actually killed the chick. I'm like, no, this is not the murderer. That's the other person. You got the wrong murderer. I solved the crime. You gave me all the clues. And I was wrong, apparently. What? Actually writing down that someone had the gloves. You're writing it down. You're physically writing it down, wanting the audience to see it. Then I don't understand. I think it's just that I don't like crime fiction. I think that's the problem with this. There was a lot of sexism in this book because the main character was male, and of course J.K. Rowling wanted people to believe that this book was written by a male, and it was just, it made my skin crawl. One of the conflicts in this book is that the private eye doesn't want to get too close to his female assistant because what would her fiance think? And he kept going, oh, what would your fiance say about this? Or, oh, I don't think your fiance would like this very much. And I'm like, shut up about the damn fiance. Like, she has her own mind. She can decide if she wants to stay late at work to finish up the case. So I ended up giving this book 3.5 out of 5 stars, but rounding it up on Goodreads to 4 stars because, like I said, it's my fault that I don't like crime novels. Like, that's not J.K. Rowling's fault. The sun is obviously setting, so I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you guys for watching. I will have a TBR up very, very, very soon, and I will see you next time. Bye!